New details tonight about the motel where a Minnesota man was allegedly tortured and killed. NBC News reports police were called there 8 different times, but not specifically to the room where Sam Nordquist was allegedly held captive.
In September 2024, Sam Nordquist left Minnesota. A new chapter, a new relationship, one message, one photo, and then silence. 5 months later, his body would be found wrapped in plastic, dumped in the cold woods of upstate New York, tortured, starved, and no one knew why. Sam was 24. He was trans. He was Black. And he was brave. In late 2023, he started talking to someone online, Precious Arzuaga, a woman from New York. The connection was fast, deep, romantic. He booked a ticket, September 2024. Friends say he was excited, nervous, but after New Year's Day, he went quiet. His family grew alarmed. They called, they begged, they filed wellness checks, nothing. In January 2025, Sam sent one final message to a social worker. He said he needed help. He was scared. He was planning an escape, but the message went nowhere. On February 9th, police entered a motel room at Patty's Lodge. They found signs of prolonged torture, blood, restraints, human waste. Sam had been held there, and he wasn't alone. 7 people, all connected, all complicit. Precious Arzuaga, the girlfriend, Jennifer Quijano, her sister, Kyle Sage, Patrick Goodwin, Emily Motica, Kimberly Sochia, Thomas Eves. They took Sam in, then turned on him. But this wasn't just murder. It was theater. According to the DA, Sam was tortured in front of children, forced to crawl, mocked, beaten. A performance of control, day after day, week after week. 2 children lived in the house where Sam was first held. They watched. Sometimes they helped. Sometimes they cried. They were victims too. The youngest said, "They told me not to tell, or I'd go missing too." On February 13th, 2025, Sam's body was found, wrapped in a plastic tarp, dumped in a field. He weighed less than 100 pounds, bruised, scarred. His hands were bound. The courtroom was tense. All 7 pleaded not guilty, but the evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance footage, text messages, recordings. Still, prosecutors stopped short of calling it a hate crime. Why? The legal burden, the complexity, the fear of mistrial. But the community? They called it what it was. Sam asked for help, and the system failed. The paper trail was there. The warnings were loud, but no one knocked on that door until it was too late. Sam wasn't a victim. He was a human being, loved, brilliant. His friends say he could light up a room. His family says the silence is louder now. What they did to Sam was unthinkable, but what we do now, That's what matters. His story doesn't end in a field. It begins there. In a quiet village in northern Italy, a door creaked open in April 2025. Behind it, 3 children, pale, shaking, blinking into daylight they hadn't seen in years. Not months, not lockdowns, years. What happened inside that house is not just a tragedy. It's a time capsule, a forgotten echo from the pandemic, still whispering today. This is the story of 3 children and the house that forgot time.
Mama!
It started with a phone call. A school administrator, confused. 3 siblings hadn't attended since 2020. The parents had deregistered them, citing homeschooling, but no one had seen them, not even neighbors. No birthdays, no outings, no footprints in snow. What officers found defied expectation. No blood, no chains, no visible violence, just silence. 3 children, huddled in a room, wearing masks, plastic gloves, rigid, staring like prisoners who didn't know they were free. The parents were found upstairs, calm, cooperative. They said the children were safe. We protected them, the father repeated. The virus is still out there. The rules in the house weren't suggestions, they were doctrine. Every movement was timed. Wake at 6 a.m., meals at 7 a.m., 1 p.m., and 6 p.m. Showers on Monday, Thursday, and Sunday, 1 minute each. If anyone coughed, everyone masked up. If a door creaked, it was sealed. Outside was death, inside was order. The father, once a physics lecturer, turned their home into a bunker. The mother, a former primary teacher, taught the children from old books. But by 2025, the curriculum was just one lesson. The virus is waiting. Italy was the world's first warning. In 2020, fear ruled the airwaves. Sirens, lockdowns, deaths. But some people never left that moment. Psychiatrists now call it COVID delusional entrapment, a mixture of agoraphobia, trauma, and shared psychosis. These parents didn't believe the virus had weakened. They believed it had mutated, evolved, that governments were lying, that schools were death camps, that fresh air was poison. There were no clocks in the house, only routines, only repetition. The youngest child didn't know their own name. They'd been renamed, Clean One. The middle child, Masker. The oldest, Guard. Meals were identical. Cans, crackers, powdered milk. Playtime was banned. Language regressed. One child only spoke in numbers, counting the cracks on the walls. Another whispered bedtime stories in Latin. When authorities opened the curtains, the children screamed, not from pain, but from wonder. They'd never seen real birds, real trees. Their skin reacted to sun like it was fire. One child whispered, "Is this a dream?" But the parents didn't run, they begged. "We were saving them," they said. Don't take them outside. They'll die.
Can we go outside now? Will the sky hurt?
Both parents were diagnosed with shared psychotic disorder, folie à deux, a delusion shared by two. Experts say it spread like a virus, from news, from fear, from love twisted by obsession. They didn't think they were criminals. They thought they were survivors, and that outside was extinction. Today, the children are in state care. They're learning what the world is, what hugs feel like, what friends sound like, what tomorrow means. They speak of the house in fragments. They call it the waiting place, a home built not with bricks, but with fear. The house still stands, empty, quiet, but echoes remain. The world moved on. The headlines changed, but some doors never reopened. Some clocks never started ticking again. Some children were forgotten. If you know someone still living behind curtains, knock, ask, remind them the world is still here.
Days after an American woman of Indian origin was found chained to a tree in a forest in Maharashtra, the police have filed an attempt to murder case.
It wasn't meant to be a rescue, just a shortcut. The kind of detour you take when you've walked the same road too many times, and you think you've seen it all. But some turns lead to places that history tried to bury. At first he thought it was an animal, maybe a cow left to graze, but then it moved, too slowly, and then it looked up. No scream, no cry, just a stare, blank but practiced. She hadn't seen open sky in months. She didn't know what year it was. She had no shoes, no memory of the last visitor, but she remembered one thing.
Why did they lock me?
This is not a horror story, it's worse, because it happened, and it happened in plain sight. Before the chain, there was a classroom. Before the silence, there were children who called her madam. Before she became the woman no one saw, Lalita Kai stood at the front of a blackboard and told other people's children to never stop learning. She had a degree in Marathi literature, a job she never missed, a husband lost to illness in 2015. That's when the shutters began to close. After his funeral, she moved in with her extended family. They said she changed, grew quiet, started walking at night. And one day, she vanished, not from the world, just from attention. The family called it illness, but they never called a doctor. They called her dangerous, but they never filed a police report. They called her crazy, but they knew exactly where she was. For nearly 2 years, she was 10 meters from the kitchen, 20 meters from the road, and no one heard a thing. This wasn't a rope, it wasn't cloth, it was steel, welded, bolted, buried under concrete, poured in secret. At first, no one could figure out how she hadn't escaped, why she hadn't run. Then they dug beneath the roots and found the anchor. Lalita never screamed. Or if she did, the wind carried it when no one was listening. The neighbors say they saw her once or twice, but the official complaint was never filed, because seeing wasn't the same as noticing.
मुझे लगा कि वे उसे बचाने के लिए उसे बांध रहे हैं। तुम्हें पता है, वह मानसिक रूप से ठीक नहीं थी और वे उसे कभी-कभी खाना भी खिलाते थे, मुझे लगता है।
No bedding, no shelter, just a plate, a bottle, and a life reduced to a daily ration, beside a tree that remembered everything. Some scars live on bodies, some live on bark. The viral video should have opened a case. Instead, it opened a syringe. 24 hours after she was found, Lalita Kai was no longer speaking. Not because she refused, but because she couldn't. Doctors said she was delusional, that she exhibited paranoia and verbal aggression, but no one explained how she managed either while chained and starved. The sedation was protocol, the silence was not. By the second day, the narrative was locked in. Not abuse victim, not land dispute, but unstable woman rescued from herself. And with that, the case changed shape. Behind closed doors, the conversation wasn't about trauma. It was about containment. But Lalita wasn't screaming. She was warning. And what she said before the sedation was about to surface. There's only one unedited clip, 93 seconds long, filmed before the sedative set in.
They said it's safer here, but they didn't ask. I had keys once. They took the keys.
What did she mean? Who had the keys? Was she referring to the chain or something else? A psychiatric nurse later admitted she wasn't incoherent. She was terrified and trying to remember.
Don't open the cupboard. It's not mine now.
That cupboard, it would later be found sealed with rope. Inside it, land papers, her original teaching certificate, and something worse. By the time the doctors came back to finish her evaluation, she was no longer speaking. Not out of madness, but out of calculation. She had tried, and no one believed her. They call it a stare, but it wasn't empty. It was the look of someone who knows she's about to be erased again. In rural Maharashtra, land speaks louder than words, and Lalita Kai's land, 2.1 acres of cultivable soil, was the loudest thing she owned. What no one wanted to talk about was this.
2022. Lalita inherits land from her deceased husband. 2023. A dispute is filed by her brother's family claiming joint rights. 2024. No court ruling yet, but Lalita disappears from public life.
She was supposed to show up for verification, but every time we asked, her family said she'd gone to a spiritual center. We believed them. She hadn't gone anywhere. The tree was 75 feet from the border of the land in question. They hadn't hidden her in the forest. They just moved the boundary. One document, submitted during the dispute, had Lalita's signature, but experts confirmed it wasn't hers. Forged signatures, confiscated documents, and a woman legally alive but spatially erased. She never left her land because she was never allowed to. The motive was filed and then forgotten, because if you can tie a woman to a tree you can also tie her voice in knots. What happened to Lalita was horrific, but what made it possible was normal. Lalita is gone. Not dead, but elsewhere. A care home 23 kilometers away. She hasn't asked to return. Her case remains open, but the trial has been delayed 5 times. Her property is still disputed, and no one has been convicted. Thanks for staying with me through these 3 haunting stories. If any part of this episode moved you or made you think, please consider giving it a like. Share it with someone who'd want to know what the headlines missed. And if you have thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Drop a comment below. There's a lot more to uncover, and I'd be honored if you subscribed and stayed for the next one. Until then, you might find something else in the shadows worth watching. Click around, and thanks again for being here.